Is like the pursuit of a new challenge where you're starting from zero versus like you founded a company, then you found another company, then you blah, blah, blah. Like that's familiar for you. Maybe you could even say it's comfortable in a way. The challenge is comfortable. Am I on the right track there?
No, you're exactly on point. And, I kind of applied to the same thing when I got into cycling. I was starting from zero. I know how to ride a bike, but I've never actually gone out for any particular distance. And I think one of the things I've often struggled with is I tend to pick up things pretty quickly. This was an opportunity for me to be bad at something. This was an opportunity for me to be comfortable with being bad at something. That in order to be good, you're most often bad first, and you have to get to that point. Especially starting a second company, it felt like I was flexing muscles that I've been using every single day. I knew exactly what steps I needed to take. I knew exactly what needed to be done. Did I encounter different issues? Absolutely. It's a product company versus a services-based company, but I knew generally where I was going. I can read guides online of like how to run and how to, get faster. But in order to do anything, you have to actually get out and go. And you have to be comfortable with whatever happens so you know where you're starting. That's in a way why it's different from the agency side of things, of the entrepreneurship side of things, is that that's a very difficult thing to be comfortable with, just being bad at something and being okay with being bad at something.
The pursuit of excellence in running can also almost be disassociated with like actually improving in a tangible way. To a point, right? Like you can aspire to run a 7-hour marathon and you can aspire to run a 2-hour marathon. And for the most part, your process is pretty similar. The biggest difference is genetics. And so it's like what you can control is consistency and dedication. What you can't control is what you're born with and your ability to like set a world record or Olympic trials qualify or BQ or break 4 or 5 or 6 or 7 or whatever it is. These are just like tangible, nice numbers that sound like $1 million or $250,000 or whatever, and provide context. I often joke, and I got some backlash on this recently, that the only relevant goal, universally relevant goal in the marathon is breaking 2 hours. Everything else requires context. That's the only number that doesn't require context. Outside of that, everything is entirely like you could run a 4-hour marathon. It could be the best day ever. You could run, whatever. And it's not. I saw a review of this podcast where someone was like, what a stupid take, like blah, 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 blah. And I was like, no, the point is that, so this came about because I was telling people about, my goal in the marathon is to break 2. I was really trying to break 3. I was running with a group at the time where a 2:59 is like wildly unimpressive. And they're all, in the 2:15 to 2:45 range. And so who cares? Like what is meaningful to them or to that context is I'm trying to run faster than I've ever run in my life. That's where I think running can be universal, or running can be super exciting and interesting to anyone, because the ability to improve is entirely based on your ability to be consistent, right? Like if I wanted to get really good at shooting free throws, it's probably more than just shooting a lot of free throws. It's entirely skill-based, whereas running up to a certain point, the skill is consistency versus like a tactical, I'm going to arc my arms like this and curl my fingers like blah, 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 blah. Was that a consideration for you, that like, how to persevere, how to get better at something, so might as well start at something that you suck at and then see how good you can get?
Exactly. And that's why I'm not super strict on my own, speed, like my pace, for example, because I know that I'm going to be a whole lot slower than a lot of people out there. And the fact that I'm even out there in the first place and I'm seeing improvements, that's what drives me to keep on going.
What does improvement look like for you? Like, how do you measure that?
I can look back at how I felt when I was running, let's say a year ago, and how I feel now doing that same run. For me, it's not just the numbers, because the numbers don't tell the whole story. For me, I know specifically how I felt. I know where I felt most proud And I have friends who are kind of in the same boat as me, working on improving their running, but at the same pace that I am now. And so I have other people who I can celebrate those wins with as we're continuing to move on together. And, this is the longest I've ever run before, especially consistently. This is the longest I've kept my training consistent as well. That's another thing that I love celebrating, because especially as I travel a lot for work, I also travel a lot for fun. I just got home on Wednesday or on Tuesday from a 4-week stint of traveling around the world. And so I was able to keep my running even when I was in San Francisco or in Poland or in Chicago. And I make it a point for me to continue to do that because, one, I like the consistency. And two, I like challenging myself to be able to do those types of things, regardless of being outside of my comfortable environment.
And three, it's a fun way to see new places.
It is a very fun way to see new places. It's a really great way to get lost.
Totally. Yeah, I think that the consistency being celebrated aspect is interesting. The way that you answered that is interesting, right? I like to ask people about defining success, and you sort of answered it in a way that wasn't like the word success wasn't really involved. But would you say that those three things led to a successful last 4 weeks?
Absolutely. Yeah. I have other non-tangible goals that are coming as a result of this consistency as well, of just, how my body feels in general, or my resting heart rate, what that's doing, or, how I'm just feeling energy level wise. And I work with a nutritionist. So how I'm feeling with working out or with running while also tracking my food, and being able to see those patterns is another area where I feel that is successful for me, being able to see that full picture, that holistic change. That's not just, I'm able to run faster for a longer period of time.